Hi, I'm Manisha,
Shrikal, I'm Atar.
and this is Two Best Friends podcast, where we talk about lots of things, yap away about our life, about experiences of being women, brown, migrants, millennials, parents, and anything that relates to us or you. And here we are today in another episode of our podcast, and we're going to be talking about travel. And traveling with me, as you would know, me and Atar are quite passionate about it or love it. And we thought it'd be good to talk to our listeners about our experiences of traveling, but also what it means to travel with friends, but as solo, or with family, the different versions of it and what's been our experiences of it. Because a lot of people have come and asked us about it, and we'd like to share that with you.
Yes. Yeah, before we start, we have to acknowledge our surroundings. So, this is our second episode that we're trying to record and capture outside. So, we are in a beautiful mosque, which is Bibi Khanum Mosque. It's a tourist spot. There are many, many people around. It's a school area. So, if you hear any background noises, just bear with us as we would, as the cycle is just going past us.
Yes.
If you can hear, we are trying our best not to get it, but sorry to our producer. Might have to take it out. But yeah, so traveling, while we are traveling to Uzbekistan,
Yeah.
but we'll start with a silver lining. Manisha, take away.
My silver lining has been for this week. I think it's actually been so as you can see, we are in Uzbekistan and Samarkand at the moment. And when you come traveling, it can get quite busy. There's so many things you want to see, but we've fortunately been able to manage to do some walks that were not part of the itinerary. And we walked through the city, and there's some really beautiful walks between the gardens and all these mosques and, all the different beautiful places. And that's been my highlight because there's been a lot of locals there, kids walking around and older people walking around. And it's been amazing to do that. And the weather's been really brilliant. So I think my silver lining has been safe, beautiful, clean space to walk and have these random conversations with other and just I think that the art of just walking is something I really enjoy. And I think sometimes because we live in these places where we are driving everywhere and there is not the opportunity is not that as much. That's been my silver lining to this week.
Yeah, and the walks have been so amazing, right in the middle of the city. So wide pathways, almost like a road, and going through some of the artsy areas, some the theaters. We went past a nightclub yesterday, which looked like a house,
A house or
like
like
a
a
blacked out
big
house.
Behel house.
Yeah, it was very interesting. So, yeah, that has been really good. I think my silver lining is very, very shallow as always. I've been having great coffee. They've been making such beautiful coffee. I feel like the coffee has been mixed between American coffee, like Western coffee and Turkish coffee. It's been very strong with the hint of flavors. So I've been really enjoying my morning coffees. They're just like exactly how I like it. Super strong, wakes me up immediately. So I love it. Sorry to Manisha because she's missing out on her
Chai is not there. And other being, she's trying her best, trying to explain chai to them. So in here, they sell you chai. They call it chai, but they're giving you black tea. Okay. So Atar tried today, try to explain to this guy. Said,
मैंने सारी रेसिपी बता दी कितने मिनट तक उबालना
इतना पानी डालना white doodh that you give kids, right? With
Hey,
a little
but
bit of
with a hint of
saffron.
saffron.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
really nice. That was
But
really sweet.
yeah, like that was their thing. But I think if I had known there was no chai, I would have said, okay, thanks. But the fact that they call it chai, they have chai houses and it's an absolutely different chai. Just it's like dhoka to me. But
I have to
fine.
say, yesterday the chai that we had, the herbal chai, it was beautiful.
Brilliant.
It had
वो तो
milk,
ginger,
lemon,
lemon, honey.
and so much honey. The
Too much
honey is very nice.
Yes. But in ki apni chai, they have beautiful chais. But of course, as a Indian, I love my masala chai with everything in it and doodh and ginger and all, and it wasn't there. But it's okay. I think that's the
Yeah.
thing about traveling, right? You just have to
Stepping out of comfort zone.
stepping out of comfort zone, and that's what we're here for.
I seriously actually considered bringing my own brew coffee from India. I didn't know what it's going to be like. The instant coffee is in Nescafe and it's shit, I know, especially the ones with the powder granules or milk granules and the sugar in it. Absolutely no go. I was so close to bringing brew with me, but I'm glad I didn't because the coffee's been outstanding.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on with the
Moving on.
travels. So
Yeah.
we
So
are here traveling.
we are here traveling, but we wanted to start from the beginning of, because of course Atta travels a lot. I have also traveled a bit, and I think we really want to, because there's something about travel, right? Like there's something about getting out of your comfort zone, going to places where there's no language sometimes, food, and that in itself builds resilience and experience and perspective, right? At least I think that is one of my core reasons within me that I feel like that's
Yeah.
what excites me. That's my why, how it starts, why
Yeah.
the thing. And I think for me it is that, and it's that for me the other thing is stories, right? Listening to all these different stories, like I'll share it later. I'm not going to share it now. About perspective, being an Indian, Amritamur is, we've heard of it, right? But there's a different perspective here and how that changes, but it's fine. Everyone has their own history and
Yeah, for
stuff.
some they're hero, for some they are not really.
They're villains, or they're just, and that's what I kind of have felt here in Uzbekistan, because Amir Tumur was from here, but their story is so different to our story of him. But I think before I do that, that's my perspective, the core of why I like going traveling. I want to know, Atta, for you, what is it? Why do you take that step to actually go to places?
I think if you have been our listeners, you know that how much I've loved the Banjara life. That's the one thing that I've wanted to do, like be a Banjara and travel around. The way I pick my country is like I listen to my gut, something that I am drawn towards, I just go for it. And one of the deciding factors, apart from going with the gut feeling or something that attracts me, is history. I love history. I love countries who are rich in history, like many people. But for example, Japan, I know that I wanted to go to Japan because I had seen so many documentaries on the World War and how they revived, like they built themselves through the ashes. And that was so fascinating for me. So I wanted to visit Japan because of that. So there's so many things. Then it's the cost as well, the travel time it takes to get to a place, and even how much time you have. For example, Uzbekistan, we decided on Uzbekistan because of the cost and the time.
And the proximity to
Proximity, exactly, because that all makes a huge difference as to why. For so many years, I was never drawn towards Europe. I was not, I didn't feel like I would connect with Europe. I did Europe, it was beautiful. Some cities amazing, but I feel like that's not where I get attracted to. As you said, like it's about the stories where you can see some resemblance and some background, some cultures that you can learn from and you can really connect with it. So it is like a learning experience, but comes down to many other factors as well. What
Yeah.
about you? What are your deciding
I
factors?
think for me, see, travel's been something be like within my heart. I just want to do it.
Yeah.
There is something that pulls me to it. But I think for me, it's also been, I am really, if anyone hears me and talks to me, you know that I love being a local everywhere, which is impossible to do. But I think it's my own mixed background. Like I love that whole, you know, living like a local or something. And even as a kid, as a young person, also I used to. I remember when I was about 18, just before coming to Australia, I went to Dharamshala. Yeah. And I actually volunteered there for about 4, 5, 6 months. And I think one of the reasons I did was because I wanted to explore Dharamshala, right? And I lived there and lived, did the whole thing. And it really, for me, it's that living in the environment that people are kind of experiencing that. Of course, it's not practical in our everyday life to do that. So I think for me, it's that experiences. So, for example, um, here it's that like Uzbekistan, you can't do more than a certain number of days because of family life, everything. But I think it's kind of choosing which places I can do less, which places I can do more. There are certain places I'm like, no, I can't do it within a few weeks. I want to be able to spend, and also for now with kids and partner, kind of, it's also that's another deciding
Because
factor that
they have their
they, where are they going to be? Also where, like, where are we all going to fit in together?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's that I would, for me, my ideal is spending as much time as I can in a place, because I really, for me, it's not seeing the nazaras or seeing the things. It is literally about stories.
See, this is so interesting between us that I am complete opposite. You'll want to go to places for a for a long time,
for
for
a
an
long time
extended period
because
of
I
time.
really want to be in that space and
Yes.
meet the people and know what the stories are and really go deep into
And
it.
I want to just squeeze all of that in a number of days and move on going home or move on to the next destination. It is very tiring. I think I can't do more than like maybe 10 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
And
can't.
that is the
Yeah.
difference between us, and both are fine. And both again, it's to do with our own where we are in our life and
Yeah.
opportunity and our personalities. But I think, yeah, so that's what's important to me is immersing into the places and experiencing that as much as I can. But it's also about seeing all these beautiful places, and like I said, my silver lining was walking around, and that's what's important to me.
It's a simple like
Yeah,
luxury,
yeah,
isn't
yeah.
it?
It
I
is.
love
It
that
is.
simple luxuries now that we are in
But
our
also
late.
holiday. I think it's also because we are on
Yeah.
a holiday or not. We are so, both of us lead such busy lives, and so many of our listeners, I'm sure, also lead such busy life that
Yeah.
almost it's the not the norm of your life,
Hmm.
which really also is attractive.
Yeah.
The like for example, for this trip, Atar did most of the planning, most of the trip thing. But it's funny how she's like, listen, I've done a lot of decision making. You have to decide all the lunches or the dinners, what we are ordering. And I get it, right? Because sometimes it's that sharing of that.
But man, the pressure that it brings to decide on what we're doing, where we're going, the number of days we're spending anywhere, because Manisha was so sure that she's not going back in one piece.
Yes.
So sure.
So
But
Uzbekistan
she
was
was
one
like,
of those, if you talk about why or where, it was proximity for us.
yeah.
And it was a little bit of,
And it's cheap.
social media and cheap.
Yeah, it's
Other
the
than that,
culture,
I
cheap,
had
and
no idea.
proximity. Yeah.
That's her. For me, it was cheap and it's close by. Okay, let's do it. And also, if Atta says, let's do this, I'm like, yeah, why not? Let's try.
And you know what was the funny thing? When we were coming to Uzbekistan, the lightning outside was, my God, I'd never seen this before. From like above the clouds,
Movies में होता है ना,
इतनी we thought like इसको तो ये
मैंने
था
कहा
कि
ये तो
यहाँ
ले
पे
गई
मरने वाली है हाँ
तो बस मेरे
she
को
was so
खत्म
sure
कर देगी
मरने वाली है तो we said कि अपने अपने हाथ दिखाओ the lifeline
मैंने कहा हमारे साथ साथ है या नहीं देख लेते हैं
हाँ
or what do you do with it?
oh pre-planning from like this year I had planned everything in advance. By Feb, March, I knew exactly what I was going to do, where I was going to travel in the school holidays for Gyan. Whereas before that, it's always been spontaneous, where they're planned maybe a week before. Like roughly, I would know where I'm going, but then the bookings and everything was like maybe a month in advance. So it was a very new thing for me, and I felt like it doesn't work with me. I cannot plan in advance because I'm a different person when I'm planning so much in advance. Like things changes, mood changes, and something else comes up, and then I'm stuck with the plan. So normally, I think if we take this year out, I think I am a spontaneous planner. I go with my gut feeling. I go with the person who I'm traveling with, which has been one of my closest friends, either Elise or Gian or with yourself. So I sit with you guys and decide on a location, and then I would book the flight and then I sit on it. I sit on it for a few days, then I let that process. Then in one sitting, I'll book the hotels. I will book all the other things, but I do not book activities. I leave activities for either a day before or when I'm there. And the way I plan for that is I always just make a different folder in my emails and keep sending those emails there. So I know that all the information is there.
Yeah.
But that's the one thing I absolutely hate. It's just this year because I had so many travel plans that I started making Excel sheet, which you love.
Wow.
I made Excel sheets even for Uzbekistan. I made Excel sheet, and what do? I forget it.
Okay.
I forget. I forgot to transfer that from my home computer to myself. So I had to send my Gyan, my son's best friend home. I had to ask Parpoor. I was like, can you go and send me this?
Yeah.
So that's how I have it. Otherwise, I had forgotten. किस तारीख पे कहाँ है कैसे कौन से होटल में ठहरे हुए
I didn't have
was
that
like
information.
yeah but luckily
Because she was trying to like
surprise you
not surprise me, but also show that she's had it all together. So I had no idea that this was in the background happening. Interestingly, I do the opposite. If I do,
yeah
I
you're
am an
very
Excel sheet person.
yes
But also for me, the first thing I do is, of course, I decide the months and all, depending on, I'll be like, okay, like next year, July, August, September, right? Generally, like I said, I like long term things. So I'll say, okay, is it possible? Work it out with family. Yes, I would like, again, like you, I will book the flights. After flights, I will leave it because I think flights is something I read somewhere. Generally, you should book like 3 to 4 months in advance, and that's the best price you get. Don't do it too early, don't do it too close. But international flights, I feel like you have to do a little more in advance. But so literally, I feel like closer to the day, and activities, I never plan. Yeah. I just do a little bit of reading, little bit of वो थोड़ा बहुत, but activities वहीं जाके karna is what I also do. And also another thing I have learned over the time is with activities also I generally do one day of planned activity like guide हो गया खुद कर लिया. दूसरा day keep it open to whatever connects to you in that space.
Even soaking up what you did the day before.
Yeah,
I
because
think
otherwise
that's
I
very
think
important.
booking everything gets too much and it gets unless you really have to book things in advance, I would not do.
Yeah.
And I recommend that because I feel like that helps you soak in that space. But with booking flights, again, we spoke about this with hotels like Uzbekistan is one of those countries where there is not much out there information on
There was
internet.
nothing.
So
I struggled so much to find the information. So I had to go, even the reviews, the maximum reviews any
it's
place,
170
150 was a max.
yeah, and
almost. It was difficult.
almost like trying to going through the reviews, and that's the only way to do it. But also, I find vlogs to be quite helpful sometimes because
Yes.
that is people's own
Yeah.
experiences
So,
of it, and
yeah,
that's my
that's a
other
good way.
That's
Young people can go TikTok or
TikTok,
Instagram.
Instagram. But
Yeah.
Instagram again, if it's a sponsored, not sponsored, you don't know. But as a millennial, yes, I read blogs and stuff.
They are
and
helpful.
Instagram's helpful.
Yeah, the other tip I would say is never ever book a flight early morning just because it's cheap.
Yes.
It fucks up your day
Yes.
because you have not slept the night before. Then you are tired because it's the flying day, you're in the flight. And if you are like us, mid 30s, I don't know with Manisha, I have started getting swellings and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Can't
It's
can't
very
can't
tiring.
get the sleep, and I agree. I think we
It
spoke
fucks up
about
your
that recently.
yes, it
That
fucks up your 2
never
days.
do early morning flights
No.
because it doesn't work. Do later in the day. Do night. You'll be much better off. Then there's an opportunity to sleep and
100%.
Yeah.
It's absolutely worth spending those extra couple of $100 on a better placed flight. And even the hotels, don't go too cheap. Go decent, which is closer to the vicinities. Otherwise, you are ending up spending so much on the taxis, which is so ridiculous.
Now traveling alone, right?
Yes,
You've
yes.
done that. I've done that. What is that? Is there anything else that you are vigilant or aware about?
There are pros and cons with traveling alone. Traveling alone definitely it puts you in a place where you're like, but now I have just made this. I work when I travel, so my first point of thought always is how to be connected with the resources with the internet. The other thing is my whole family knows where I am because we have this app, not the Apple app. We have got this Life 360 app where everybody, like, my family knows when I've landed somewhere. They even know when I've taken the ride. And once the ride has stopped, they know that I've finished taking the ride. So they are aware about my whereabouts. But this is quite recent. So before that, Bhagwan Asare.
No, but also I remember like Atar was traveling to Europe this year or last year,
This year.
and she was doing a bit of backpacking. But she actually connected with us where she was concerned in some places.
That was the first time I was doing Airbnb.
And I think it's good to do that. Have your
Yeah.
friends, have your people that you just because it's important to be safe and being common sense thing. But another thing I think is when you go to a country, if you have the opportunity, actually do a bit of planned group travel. There's a lot of like women stuff, or young people, and that's don't do the whole thing, but do 2, 3, 4 days if you can, because that also gives you an opportunity. I think that's my thought.
Yeah,
To see something.
interesting. I can't do guided tours or group things.
Not guided
yesterday
tours.
we did guided tour. बोल के मैं थक गई थी.
Yes.
I was like next level pakao man.
Firstly, for me, like
We loved it.
I
He was
like
talking
that
away. I
stuff
was so
because I
happy.
feel like it gives me more perspective on a place rather than just seeing myself. So for me, it's like I would, if I'm traveling by myself, I generally book myself in for like 2, 3 days somewhere where I'm part of a group or part of something, and then I do my own stuff as well because
That's
then
my
it
worst
gives
nightmare.
yeah.
I will pick and choose. I not that I don't talk to people. I will talk to people. बट मूड की बात है जब नई नई कॉफी पी होती है देन आई कैन टॉक टू द वर्ल्ड उसके बाद नहीं नॉट ऑल डे लॉन्ग इट्स जस्ट गेट्स टू मच सो दैट्स माय वर्स्ट नाइटमेयर आई आल्सो गो विद द फ्लो लाइक आई लव लाइक एनीवेयर आई गो द वन थिंग आई लव इज जस्ट मॉर्निंग strolls I just love going out getting coffee from the cafes and it's just so beautiful
And being close to place, book a place that's close to stuff. Because
yeah
rather than saving money, I feel like that is the place maybe don't. Like just look at save money, but look at a place that's closer to everything or close to the where you're going, especially if you're going with a few one or two people or by yourself. What do you look like? Now, my next question is, when you go to a new country, what do you look for? Like, what is your main thing that you're looking for?
I love to look up stuff. I used to look things up on Google or Instagram, but Elise taught me to see things on TikTok, the unsponsored ones. That really helps me narrow down where I'm going. But I like to go to the historic places. Definitely, every place has some sort of like significant places that I love to go to. And then the lesser known areas, I like going there as well because I feel like that's where you actually get the real zest of the place, which is non touristy. But the difference again between you and I is I'm nowhere like at any place, I'm not there for too much longer to explore too much. I will go to the highlighted places and then move on. But then that also means that in my mind, I've made the list of where I would want to go again, and I'm not hesitant to go anywhere again.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, it would be, yeah, of course, when you go to a place, you have a list of things, so try to do everything. But I also try not to do everything because I've realized, in the past, I would be like, oh my God. But then I've realized, no, yeah, there is no need to do everything because it's too much. It's too, you get tired, overwhelmed, you're coming on a, just soak in what you can,
Yeah.
and that's it. So see what are the 5 places you really want to see, the rest just leave it. Give some time to chill and, whatever, meet people. But I also generally, when I go, I do talk to local and try to see what they have as a local thing. What is something maybe is not as well known, but what is something they have? Maybe it could be a cafe, it could be a place they walk, and then try to do that as well. Personally, that's generally what I do. But my one thing that I have learned over the years is don't try to do everything.
No,
It's not
absolutely.
possible, and just do what you feel connected to more. So you're like, okay, this looks good, and leave it at that. And then if really you need to come back, or you have the opportunity, and leave it. Just that's all that is for now.
Do you know what's the other thing that I feel like ever since lockdown happened has helped me see a lot more vigilantly or a lot more is food because of food. So I've traveled with Elise and Gyan, and with Elise is vegan. With Gyan, we don't eat anywhere that cooks meat as well because of the cross contamination and stuff like that. So we are very limited with the choices that we have in vegan restaurants and vegan cafes. So nowadays, what I do after I've booked the tickets is, or even alongside the tickets, is I look at the vegan cafes that are there in a certain city and I'll bookmark them or I'll pin them on Google map, and then I plan around it. Like you go there for morning and then lunch and dinner, and then you walk in between and you see places around there. So it's become like a food tour.
Yeah.
And nowadays we are absolutely spoiled with choices that are out there with vegan food. So I feel like I get to see a lot more local areas and local spots because of those cafes. It's been a struggle in Uzbekistan, but again, as we said, like it's stepping outside of your comfort zone, and
It
that's what
is,
we are
and
doing.
but food is important, right? Like
Yeah.
all of us, and especially if you come, even the cuisine here is quite different. So we have, I'm a big like, okay, let me try new stuff, but I'm also like, I'm only gonna push myself to an extent.
She is a picky eater.
I am a picky eater, but
That
but I'm also like, एक बार try कर लिया, बस thank you very
ये
much.
शक्ल देख के बोलती है ना 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 शक्ल देख के मुंह बना लेती है, and I'm like, man. But the good thing about her is इसको पता है, like she will think and she'll be like, आज इटालियन खाने का मन है. मेरे जैसा बंदा हर मिनट में नहीं इटालियन नहीं इंडियन भी खा सकते हैं, ये भी कर सकते हैं, but no, she will make her mind and will stick
I
to
am,
it,
yeah.
which
And I
is
think
so
that's
good.
learning with
Which is
age.
good.
I am a picky eater, or maybe I am surrounded by picky eaters.
No, no, you're a picky eater.
But yeah, I think food is important. I have learned, right? Because I feel like that's your sustenance. Of एक खाना अगर दिन में अच्छा ना हो ना, it just doesn't fuel you, and that's why whoever you are, whichever country you're from, find a place you're comfortable with,
Yeah.
rather than unless you're okay with eating everything, and that's fine. But there are find your comfort food because I think that makes a big difference. At least once a day or once in 3-4 days, because that really makes a difference in
And
how you
even
feel.
like eating as little as eating salad. I feel like even salads make a huge difference because not any like tomato is going to taste the same. Every like country's tomatoes are going to be different because of their environment. And same being a gaon ki ladki, and I've like always grown up drinking so much milk. I'm very like I can tell the difference between doodh as well. And that's something that I used to enjoy drinking milk and distinguishing ke ye alag hai. Anyway, we're getting too much
No, no, you're right.
into
No, no, I get it. Okay, next thing. I want to just talk about emotionally the impacts of it. Oh, because I feel like that's something we don't talk much
no,
about.
we don't.
And it is we both agreed that it is something that does impact. Like it's not a bed of roses, but it also you go through up and down. It's exciting. It's amazing traveling. But yeah. So tell me about your experience.
I had to learn it hard way that traveling comes with a lot of emotions. What you see on Instagram or someone posting photos is what not what it is. That is a single moment that has been captured while it's being clicked with a smile. But behind that, before traveling, when you're planning, I get very, very anxious. I get anxious about how this is going to turn out. What if, like, with our mood, especially women, we don't know where our hormones are going to be like, if we are going to get our periods, because that dictates, unfortunately, how we are feeling. So I get very anxious that, oh my God, I've planned all this. Is it going to work out well? Am I going to be internally happy during that time? So the pressure beforehand is very intense, or it used to be intense. But now I've started to work through those emotions and not think about it. And I think, like, no, that's fine. I will deal with it when that emotion comes. So that's how I deal with the pre planning anxiety. When I am traveling in the trip, yeah, those are the students at the back.
Yeah.
When I'm traveling, then I get homesick. I get homesick for my bed, for my little routines. Water, even water is so delicious. I get homesick even if I'm traveling domestic within Australia. I get homesick for water. That's what I feel during traveling. So I would say in a 24-hour period, I will get happy maybe 1 or 2 hours. Other than that, it's just like you can't soak it in. You can't just be on high horse of like, oh my God, I'm traveling and being grateful. I'm grateful every time I'm traveling, but you can't sustain that emotion, I feel. Once you finish traveling, and then when it gets to the home time, then that kicks in. Shit, the travel was so good. Being outside of those routines was so good. Now we are back onto that rut. Even though I've missed that rut, even though I've missed that routine, but shit, I'm back. But I'm glad to be back. Yeah. I'm glad to be home. So it's again that roller coaster of the thing. It's the 3 months afterwards that the joy of having traveled hits me. That's when I'm just like, because I've lived it. I've lived those really 3 months, but as in like few months afterwards, that's when it hits like I've traveled and it was so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, I would say kind of again, I feel like it also depends on who you're traveling with, what's happening, what the plan is. I think with my, we've been traveling with my kids and family, that brings another level of like, okay, pack karna hai, there's a lot, it can build up.
Yeah.
Right? Depends on where you're going. So there is that, of course. I do not so much homesickness, but I do feel nostalgia a bit. Absolutely. The moment I feel like it hits me a lot, there is almost a withdrawal period in life
Yeah.
where I just go through a really dip before I come back, getting used to the new space or where we're living or staying or stuff. But one of the things that I was thinking also, and I want to talk about is if I'm traveling without my kids, there is always that guilt that I carry in the beginning, right? Especially like when I came here, my daughter, oh, where are you going? What are you doing? I say to her, I'm going, I'm traveling, and I really stand by it, and I find it very important for me to do that. But I also there is almost like this, oh, and just I'm leaving her. Is it, I know it's absolutely fine, but there is something within internal that goes on for a bit before it's fine, right? She's fine, I'm fine, we're all okay. But there is that parent something, right? And yeah, just something that is an emotion that I deal with, and maybe as my kid grows older, it'll be fine. But right now there is that, and I think just I mean every time you have to plan something, there are times when I'm like, if like for me because I'm doing more long term, there is exhaustion from traveling, and I'm just like that's it.
Yeah.
I don't want to go anywhere. I want to be in one place, which is another part of that whole emotional thing. So it's amazing, but it also has we are humans, right? You go through your thing. Plus,
Absolutely.
when you come out of your comfort zone, it's almost that I read this thing, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen it on Instagram, where it's like you come get out, you in that circle of unsafe or different environment, uncomfortable, then you keep going up, 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 and then there is growth. There is growth in your resilience, your
वो
perspective.
ग्रोथ कब आती है जब तेरे जैसा लंबा ट्रैवल करते हैं कि मेरे जैसा
Any. What I mean is, we're coming every time we do this, we're coming out of our comfort zone.
Okay.
Right? Today we're sitting here, there is no chai, there is this, there is random place, we're coming out of our comfort. There is growth in that, there is resilience. right? You come to a different country, nobody speaks your language, you're trying to work through it.
Yeah.
All of that, it makes a difference,
Yes.
right? And I feel like that is what it is. And I'm not saying travel is the only way, but travel is one of the
The ways.
And I think that is the most amazing part because I do feel like almost even when we came here, I was like, "Kar lenge."
Uh-huh.
You know, there is that confidence that I feel it creates.
Someone said to me, I can't remember, a while ago, that travel makes great stories that you can talk to people about. So that's your connecting point. If you, and not saying that people who don't travel are not interesting, but it just gives you something to talk about,
हाँ, and
something
just
to
and
discuss, which is
perspective
very
यार ऐसा
beautiful.
लगता है
Yeah,
यार बहुत दुनिया में लोग हैं अलग अलग
100%.
type के चीजों के and it just I feel like that's what it helps in kind of that growth.
So has there been any country that you felt like that is your soul home, or you felt connected to very strongly, deeply, apart from India?
It's India. That is not a place.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, I love Japan. I feel like Japan is somewhere that in my core that is very like it feels home in some ways.
Yeah. No, for me, it's India. I mean, I haven't felt that. I haven't, again, maybe when I go to a few other places, I'm sure I have some South American blood in me or something DNA.
Yeah.
But no, not yet. I would say for me, they're just different parts of India. I feel like India is so crazy in itself that
Yeah, that's one thing I would like to do. I haven't seen much of India, unfortunately.
I'm a big India believer, follower. In the sense of wanting to travel India because I feel like there's so much. But anyways, we are just
Can I
yapping
just
away.
quickly say that your dress matches the mosque's tone?
Of course, it's all planned.
If you go head up to our YouTube channel, you can see this video and see that
It was all
Manisha is
sync.
channeling Bibi Khanum energy there.
Yes, it's a very interesting story, everyone. We'll make a reel. We've made a reel about it. Please listen to Bibi Khanum's story and my conspiracy theory or our conspiracy theory about it. But no, I think that's it. Is there, it's a really hard question and I don't want to ask, but
Yeah.
I'll ask. Tell me a highlight of your recent travel thing that you really sticks with you or like a core memory in your recent times or anything that you can think of.
I think it's the quiet luxuries that I enjoy the most. Like recently, was it 2 years ago when I traveled with Elise? All of Jordan was so beautiful, and having shared with my close friend, and just like sitting in silence and sitting on a mountain overlooking big desert and feeling so significant in the bigger scheme of things. That was such a beautiful moment. The other moment was with you actually when we went to Bali, when we traveled together for the first time in bloody 25 years. That night, lights were off and we were just falling asleep and we were stupidly talking, laughing.
We were very
Laughing like
exhausted. We had a
getting,
4 a.m. day that day.
yeah, we went to the waterfall and oh
Yeah.
my God, we were tired, but we were laughing. You know, when everything becomes funny.
Yeah. For me, it's more recent. My memory can't go beyond that right now. I think for me, recently, it's been with my, we've been traveling and we were in Ladakh, and I would take the kids. We had a scooty, and I think I would take the kids, one in the front, one at the back, and just go to random places like monastery and stuff. And I remember sitting in one of the monasteries in the highest part of Ladakh, Leh, and you could see the all of Leh, and there's nice wind, and the Buddhist flags they were just flying, and it was literally like a balcony but closed, but you could just off you go if you but it was I remember sitting there with kids and just sitting and we were all just looking out. And it was such a cool moment and such a beautiful moment that it was like, between just it just sticks with me. But also the art of just going on the scooty really like it brings me back to childhood, I think, of going on scooties and scooters and I think that's what it is, like connecting to our own paths at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was my highlight. And yeah, that's kind of it. I think it's lovely to hear. I heard some really cool stuff from you. I haven't heard, so it was good to hear that.
Likewise.
And thank you for listening to
Thank you
us
for
today.
listening.
And
We love talking, especially about travels,
love
which
yapping
is yes, which is like something that's close to our heart.
Yeah.
Hope you've enjoyed it. Leave us your feedback and some love on all our socials and anything that you would like to hear us talk about. But until then, you're listening to Two Best Friends podcast, and we'll be seeing you soon.
Thank you.